kicking off with some genuine honesty. I was very tempted not to record this episode. I was trying to make excuses as to why I could have a pause in my weekly uploads, and I kept hitting a wall when it came to motivation as to what topic I really wanted to sit down and talk to you about today on this solo episode of It's Not Luck. And then there was a part of me that was like, no, that's not who I am. I'm not someone who makes excuses. I'm not someone who just skips an episode because they can't be bothered. Genuinely speaking, I am very self-motivated, self-disciplined. But actually, this is what then helped me to figure out the topic that I thought would be important and valuable to speak about today. And it's this notion of when actually is resting the right decision versus when is it a sign that we are avoiding something. And instead of pretending everything's fine and showing up and feeling super motivated and energized, actually talking about the times when maybe we're not feeling as motivated and when we do want to just shut our laptop for the day at 11 a.m. and when we do want to cancel the meetings that we've got in the afternoon. What do we do in those times when motivation is low, when showing up feels like a lot of work, and when rest starts kind of whispering in our ear that it's time to stop, we really need it. It's that whole kind of internal battle I find. And I speak to clients about it quite a lot as well, that we don't know which voice to listen to. If I take time off, or if I cancel my meetings, or if I have a long lie-in, is that lazy, or is actually that my body needs energy and that my body just needs time to switch off? And this is what we're going to be diving into in today's episode. So if you are new here, a very warm welcome. If you are a returning listener or you're watching on YouTube, hello, thank you so much for coming back. This is all about success, unpacking success, and really helping shine a spotlight on the fact that success is not down to luck. I believe we create our own luck down to habits, behaviors, routines, decisions, people that we surround ourselves by, putting in the hard work. That is what leads to those lucky outcomes. And so part of luck, or part of success, is listening to our body, honoring our energy, making intentional decisions, not ignoring our intuition. And so I want to start off by speaking about the pause, and seeing pause as a practice, especially as business owners and solopreneurs. I feel like it's harder. And feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below or send me a message on Instagram if you disagree. But as a solopreneur, there's never really a need to switch off. There's always something else to do. Whereas in a corporate job, speaking from my own experience, whilst you can feel like there's always stuff to do, it's easier, quote unquote, to switch off because you think, actually, I'm only getting paid for these hours. Why would I work overtime? And so it's easier to kind of want to switch off or feel less guilty of switching off, let's say. And it's taken me, honestly, years to learn. And I am still learning 5.5 years into running my business, that rest is not something we earn. It's something we need. And it sounds ridiculous to say it out loud because it's so obvious. Yet in a society where speed is rewarded, where reaching milestones as quickly as possible is celebrated, where we wear busy as a badge of honor. It's so easy to get caught up in that cycle, that belief that we have to deserve downtime. But that belief is what leads to burnout. And I know that firsthand. I know I've spoken about this before, but for anyone that's new here or maybe hasn't heard part of my story, I experienced real burnout in the first year of running my business, which was ironic because I left my corporate job to have more freedom, to have more autonomy of my time, to enjoy more flexibility. Yet I was the hardest working version of myself I've ever been, which isn't surprising when you're setting up a business. And I would definitely say a big part of that hard work is what led to my success early on. However, I definitely was of the belief that the harder I worked, then the more successful I would be. And actually, I could only take a step back or rest or work less once I had hit a certain point. But our bodies and minds need pauses. They need time to switch off in the same way that they need food and hydration. Rest isn't a luxury. It's it's a fundamental part of success. If we don't rest, how can we ever recharge our energy? How can we ever create space to reflect, to reimagine, to refine our strategies or our way of doing things? And I learned that the hard way because I was pushing through. I was neglecting myself from joy. I wasn't allowing myself this freedom that I'd, taken a big risk and bold move to work towards. And I just remember sitting at my desk day after day, working through the weekend, saying no to social plans, getting up super early, working super late. I had no energy for my relationship, with my friendships, because I was putting everything into my business. And that cost me, not only did it cost me enjoyment in the journey, but it also cost me things that actually on paper are way more valuable than earning an extra few £1,000s that month. Do you know what I mean? And if we see rest as something that we have to earn, then we're never going to get to a place in our business or in our career where we feel really proud of, because we won't have the energy to enjoy it and we'll burn out before we get there. And what I've had to realize and learn with a lot of awareness, with a lot of speaking to my own coaches that I've worked with or friends in the industry, is stillness or resting doesn't mean doing nothing. It doesn't mean lying on the sofa with a Domino's pizza and watching films for 7 hours a day. Yet in my mind, that's almost like the image that I had created with slow down, rest, pause, was almost like the extreme of like being lazy. And I think that's probably where the gap was for me, is I assumed, or I thought people would think I was being lazy by resting. But actually resting is healing. It's noticing things, it's processing, it's integrating what you're learning. It's creating space to be creative. It's not slugging and slobbing and monging away on the sofa, like brain rotting. Do you know what I mean? So I really hope that lands for some of you. Stillness is not doing nothing. Resting is not something that we have to earn. It's like a fundamental part of health and therefore success in our life, just as is hydration and fueling well. So my invitation to you is, where can you practice the pause more? Where can you slow down just a tiny bit? Where can you create more space? I saw a post on Instagram the other day, this girl that I follow, and she said that one of the boundaries that she's implemented since going solo and leaving her corporate job is she now has a 1 hour a day, which is uninterrupted, non-negotiable time just to think, just to be. That could be in a park, it could be in a coffee shop, it could be in her bed, but she just has that hour. And I love that idea. I'm really going to try and implement that. What I would actually love your thoughts on is what would you do in that hour? Because that's, if I'm being totally honest, the thought of having that hour, I'm like, what would I do? I would definitely read. I love reading. I'd probably be tempted to watch some of my guilty pleasure reality TV shows. But then it could also look like painting, of drawing, of being, baking, or just sitting and people watching. So I might challenge myself actually to do that, and I will let you know how I get on. Now, in line with that, and the reason why I found it difficult for so long to rest more, as I say, it's still very much a journey, is navigating the guilt that comes with seemingly doing nothing, even though we have just acknowledged that it's not doing nothing. That guilt that creeps in when you slow down, when you start thinking, am I falling behind? Am I not trying hard enough? Am I not taking this seriously? This, I should be doing more voice. And I can bet that so many of you listening are thinking, yep, I've got a very loud voice that tells me that I should be doing more a lot of the time. And I think as high achievers, as ambitious women, that's natural because we always want to be doing more, especially if we're doing something that we love. And that's also a sort of hard thing that I had to get my head around, was but I love what I do, so I just want to carry on working. But we have to realize that long-term success does not come from consistently working. Long-term success comes from balance, from looked after energy, from clear headspaces, from informed decisions. That doesn't happen when we're not resting. So even if everyone else around you seems to be constantly doing, creating, pushing, moving fast, remember that is just a surface level vision or kind of reality that you are seeing. You're not seeing what's happening behind the scenes. So I would invite you to let go of this idea that you're slowing down or that other people aren't resting, and actually focus on what rest would enable you to do, what rest would unlock for you. And it doesn't mean that you've lost your drive. It doesn't mean that momentum's going to slow down. It means that you are creating firm foundations for you to keep going longer over a longer period of time. And it's just, it's a reframe ultimately. When guilt creeps in, question that voice that says, I should be doing more. And realize actually how much you've already done that day, how much you've already done that week. I know I'm someone who probably, and I don't say this at all in a boastful or arrogant way, I am a generator in human design, which means that I kind of have this endless tank of energy, as it were. Like I can keep going, keep pushing, which is not always the right thing, but I get things done in quite a short space of time. So I know compared to the average person, I'm probably doing double or triple the amount of work in 1 week than most people. So actually, if I stopped working at 3:00 one day, I don't need to feel guilty about that, but I have to tell myself that. I have to coach myself through those situations to almost remind myself, no, of course you can go to the park. Of course you can meet up with a friend between 11 and 12. That doesn't mean that you're dossing. That's just what I've done now. And actually that walk and matcha with a friend that I've just had, literally before I came and sat down and recorded this podcast, is what then motivated me to sit down and record this podcast, because I had a break, had fresh air, I connected with a friend, and I came back feeling way more energized than I was at 9 a.m. when I was second guessing and doubting whether I was going to film and record this episode this week. So clarity and creativity need stillness. That's why we have our best ideas in the shower or in the middle of the night, because we are resting. We're allowing ourselves to slow down. We're allowing space for new thoughts and new ideas to come into our mind. Rest isn't the enemy of momentum. It's very much part of the rhythm. Rest is what contributes to growth. Rest is what helps fuel taking action. If we're exhausted and burnt out, we're not going to be taking those big, bold actions that get us outside of our comfort zone. We're going to be taking the easy route. And the easy route and the safe route and the comfortable route is not where that head-turning success, that life-changing success comes to fruition. So if you're feeling in this phase at the moment where you're like, I kind of want to rest, I kind of can't be bothered, I'm feeling a bit demotivated, what kind of tired is that? Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it mental? Like, can you place the tiredness to a part of your body? Because that will then help you understand the best next step to honor the need for rest. And this is a really good question. I came across it, I think it was like a week or so ago. And it's this: when was the last time you rested without a reason? And I was like, oof, I feel seen. I feel seen because I always have to have a reason for resting. Like, I will work throughout the day and then say, okay, I deserve to rest. Or I'll work nonstop Monday to Friday so that I can rest on the weekend. But to me, that resting without a reason is seeing, okay, it's sunny outside. I'm just going to go take my book, sit on a bench and read in the sunshine. Or I really fancy going for a matcha and just not being on my screen for an hour. So I'm going to go sit in a coffee shop, people watch, and switch off for a bit. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, how can we integrate that more into our week? I think that is like such a symbol of abundance, being able to rest without a reason, knowing that things aren't going to slow down. You're not going to miss out on opportunities. You're not going to lose out on sales. You're not going to not be considered for a promotion. Like, that's honoring your boundaries and enjoying the process, which, look, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother podcast, but it's such a big part of it. So if we keep on with this theme of resting and acknowledging when we need rest, and also identifying like what is the tiredness that we are feeling that might be the voice that's telling us to rest, when does rest become avoidance? And this is a really good one, because resting too much ultimately is not going to get you to your big dreams, the big lifestyle shifts, the big like jump up in income. Because too much rest will slow you down. So what is that balance between resting and recharging, and then resting so much that you're probably avoiding doing the thing? So rest can start as healing, but it can then drift into avoidance or disconnecting or even like numbing. And to me, that's like day after day of lying on the sofa, not moving your body, like not feeling like you want to get out of bed. I've never been in that phase. So I would love to hear from anyone who has maybe had a tricky sort of relationship with rest in the past, of like switching off for so long that actually it's been detrimental. But restorative rest is rest that helps you clear your head, slow down, take a breather, and feel more like yourself ultimately. But the avoidant rest is when you start to feel stuck or foggy or more demotivated. So maybe recognize like when you've wanted to rest, and if you have honored that rest, has it sort of bled into the foggy, lazy stuckness, or actually has it been a decent amount that's left you actually feeling way more energized and good to go? So here are the signs that it might be time to gently re-engage. You're not feeling restored anymore, just pretty zoned out, pretty disconnected. Or you're no longer choosing rest, you're kind of defaulting to it. So any moment that you can't be bothered, you just say, oh, I'm just going to shut my laptop and like call it a day. Or you keep saying, I'm just going to do it tomorrow, or I'll do that next week. Actually, there are times when we have to just do the thing. We have to ignore that voice that's telling us to stop, ignore that voice that's saying, just, snooze your alarm a little bit longer, or don't worry, you can do it tomorrow. Actually, often just, is it swallowing the frog? I think it's swallowing the frog is the right phrase. Swallowing the frog is what will then spur on motivation. Like doing, the act of doing is what leads to motivation. Because by doing, we feel proud of ourselves. We feel like we're making headway. We get those endorphins that says, I'm doing the thing and it's actually feeling good, which is a little bit like today. I really, honestly, this morning, I was like, I just think I'm going to record the podcast on Monday. And I was like, hang on a minute. Monday's a bank holiday here. So when you're listening to this, if you're listening on the day it comes out, yesterday was a bank holiday in the UK. I don't want to be recording a podcast on my bank holiday. Like I want to be out, I'm seeing friends. I don't want to feel like I'm rushing it. So I knew that if I just sat down and did it, I would feel better for it. And I honestly feel 10 times better already for doing that. So ask yourself, am I avoiding something that I'm afraid of, or am I honoring what I need? And this comes back to the bigger picture, your bigger vision. What is the why behind the thing that you're avoiding? For me, the podcast is like, why was I avoiding that? It's like, I just wasn't really in the right headspace. Okay, so I went out, saw a friend, had a matcha, had a little word with myself. And I said, the reason why I want to be consistent with creating my podcast and getting out a weekly episode is because it's all contributing to my brand, my business. I know the value people get from these conversations. I know the opportunities that can arise from me showing up as a thought leader, getting my videos out on YouTube, which is a channel that I'm trying to grow and that I am growing. It's topics I feel really passionate about as well. Like I know if I'm struggling with something like this, it's going to help other people. And so connecting back in with my why was enough of a reason to kind of snap out of that, can't really be bothered mindset and just do the thing. So it's not about forcing action, but it's about noticing the line between care and avoidance, or care and like just trying to escape the problem. And sometimes kindness looks like movement. It looks like doing the thing. It looks like leaning into discomfort, because we grow from those situations and we prove to ourselves that we are capable and that we are resilient and that we don't let those negative, unsupportive narratives stop us from getting closer to that bigger vision that we're working towards. So after the rest, after taking time out, after having the pause, whether it's for an hour, it's an afternoon, maybe it's a couple of days, we want to be intentional about and aligned with that spark that's going to help us get back into the doing and the working and the showing up mode. And it might come quietly. maybe we have to put a bit of a time frame on it and say, okay, I'm going to give myself this hour, or I'm going to give myself the afternoon off. Do you know what? It's not working. There's no point in forcing it. I'm going to go outside, shift up my energy, see a friend, and I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to do the thing regardless of how I feel. So if you're new to this whole rest, balance, work, productivity idea, I would recommend having some boundaries around it so that you, A, honor the rest, and B, are able to kind of come back feeling more connected and motivated. So you don't need to worry about, oh, but what if I don't feel motivated again the next day? Or what if I just want to keep resting? Listen to your body. You will know what your body needs. And you'll also know whether it's your body genuinely needing time to recharge, switch off, slow down, or whether it's because you're avoiding something due to fear. And don't worry about falling behind or losing momentum. As I say, rest is a fundamental need for your body. If you work in any role or any business to do with people or relationships or communication, which I would imagine 99% of jobs do incorporate to some degree, your energy is your most valuable currency in so many degrees. Your energy is what will attract people to you, will help you stay focused in meetings, will help you convert clients on discovery calls, will give you the ideas to come up with new processes or systems that you can then share within your business or with your colleagues. Rest is what fuels your energy. So if we're denying ourselves of rest, we're denying ourselves of reaching our potential because our energy is going to be depleted. In the same way that if you were underfueled and you weren't eating correctly, you're not going to be at your fullest potential because you haven't got enough energy to be. Do you know what I mean? So it's remembering that the pause may have given you more clarity than pushing through ever could. And pausing is not something that we have to earn. So if you needed someone to say, it's okay, take a breather, take a pause, then this is your sign. And I'd love to know what you're going to do in your moment of pause or your afternoon of resting, because I would love inspiration for what I'm going to do. And I'm really going to try and incorporate that 1 hour of me time. Actually, as I'm saying it now, I'm like, could that also include, I love listening to motivational podcasts or watching TED Talks. It could be getting into bed with a cup of tea and watching a really inspiring TED Talk. Is that resting? I don't know. I feel like it is. Maybe that's me trying to use rest and sneakily learn more at the same time. So maybe it isn't that. But to me, that's switching off, and it's absorbing content that I feel is going to motivate me. So remember that rest today might be the most productive thing that you could do. And here is your permission slip to do that. If you enjoy this episode, don't forget to subscribe so that you catch the weekly episodes. Leave a rating or review. It would mean so much, and it helps more people to access conversations like these. And maybe share this on with a friend who you know is high achieving, fast paced, loves working, and actually could do with a permission slip to also rest and switch off. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will catch you next week. Bye.